I waited 14 months to buy Bitcoin, waiting for the right time. And it cost me, not just money, something worse. Every month I told myself I was being patient. I wasn't. I was just avoiding the decision. I'm Sats. And this is what that kind of waiting actually does to you. Let me be specific about what 14 months of waiting actually looked like, because I think the detail is more useful than the summary. Month 1. I had decided I wanted to buy Bitcoin. The price felt high. I told myself I would wait for a pullback. That seemed smart. Patient, disciplined. Month 2. The price pulled back. Not dramatically, but noticeably. I almost bought. And then I read something that made me nervous, and I decided to wait a little longer just to be sure. Month 3. The price recovered and went higher. I felt relieved I had not bought at the higher point. I told myself I had been right to wait. Month 4. Sideways movement. Nothing was happening. This felt like the wrong time to buy. I would wait for a clearer signal. Month 5. The price dropped significantly. This is what I had been waiting for. Except now the drop felt like a warning rather than an opportunity. What if it kept falling? I would wait until it showed signs of stabilizing. Month 6. It stabilized. I was almost ready. But I wanted to do more research first. Month 7 through 14. Variations of the above, endlessly. Here's the thing I did not understand while I was doing this. I was not being patient. I was using patience as a cover for something else entirely. If this is the kind of honest Bitcoin conversation you were looking for, the subscribe button is right there. Every reason I gave myself for waiting was legitimate on its own. The price was too high. The timing was wrong, the news was uncertain. The market looked risky. Each of those things was at least partially true at any given moment. But they were never simultaneously absent. There was always a reason. Because there is always a reason. The market does not reach a moment where everything is calm, the price looks obviously right, and all uncertainty has resolved. That moment does not exist, and waiting for it is not a strategy. It is a way of postponing a decision indefinitely while telling yourself you are being sensible. Now here's what the waiting actually cost, and this is the part that changed how I think about entry timing permanently. The cost was not primarily financial, though it was that too. The cost was psychological. 14 months of daily engagement with the Bitcoin price, daily reading of arguments for and against, daily small doses of regret every time the price moved in the direction I would have benefited from, and daily renewed decisions to keep waiting. That is a significant amount of mental energy spent on a decision that was never actually getting closer to being made. The uncertainty I was waiting to resolve was not resolving. It was compounding. Every additional week of research added more information, more perspectives, more possible concerns. I did not feel more confident at month 14 than I did at month 1. I felt less confident, because I had spent 14 months finding new things to worry about. Here's what finally broke the loop. I asked myself a question I had been avoiding. Not, is now the right time to buy, but what would have to be true for me to feel ready? And when I wrote down the answer honestly, I realized that the conditions I was describing did not exist and could not exist. I was waiting for certainty in an asset class that is structurally uncertain. I was waiting for a risk-free entry point into something that has no risk-free entry points. The question was not whether the time was right. The question was whether the case for owning some Bitcoin was strong enough to justify accepting the uncertainty of not knowing what would happen next. And when I framed it that way, the answer was yes. It had been yes for 14 months. I just had not been asking the right question. I bought, not at the bottom, not at a particularly clever moment, at the price that was available on the day I decided to stop waiting. And the decision I had been agonizing over for over a year took about 10 minutes to execute. Here is what I want you to take from this. And I want to be careful about how I say it because I am not telling you to buy Bitcoin right now. That is your decision to make based on your own situation and your own research. What I am saying is that if you have been researching Bitcoin for months or longer, and you keep finding reasons to wait, it is worth asking whether you are genuinely getting closer to a decision or whether you are in the same loop I was in. Because there is a version of doing more research that brings you closer to clarity. And there is a version that just generates more things to worry about while the actual decision stays permanently in the future. The waiting has a cost, not just financially, in time, attention, and the specific exhaustion of a decision that is always almost made but never actually made. At some point, the research is done. The question is whether you are honest with yourself about when that point arrives. Here's the short version. I waited 14 months to buy Bitcoin. Every month I had a reason that felt legitimate. The reasons never ran out because there is always a reason. Waiting for certainty in an uncertain asset is not patience. It is postponement dressed up as discipline. The cost of waiting is not just financial, it is the ongoing mental load of a decision that is always almost made. The right question is not whether the timing is perfect. It is whether the case for owning some Bitcoin is strong enough to accept the uncertainty of not knowing what comes next. At some point, the research is done. Being honest with yourself about when that is matters more than finding one more reason to wait. If you are still working out whether the case for Bitcoin is actually solid enough to act on, the video on why Bitcoin has value makes that argument from the ground up. Not to convince you. To give you the clearest version of the case so you can make the decision yourself. Watch that next. Stack smart. Stay curious. See you in the next stack.